Welcome, sir. Welcome to Pathrika's stage. And we are also joined by our very own TG Mohandas, sir. So before going to Iyer, sir, TG, sir, would you like to add a few words on the topic? Then we will go to Iyer, sir. TG, sir.
Yeah, it was fun watching my Twitter line today when I tweeted that there goes to be a clubhouse. And then my friend Sree Iyer also tweeted that TG Mohandas and me are going to be in a clubhouse. And the comments were very amusing, presumably from urban Naxals. Uh, they, they hate Sree Iyer like hell. So they started cursing him that you are a troublemaker, you are this, that, etc. And a few of my friends who think that Modi has a solution for every problem, so he should not be questioned. And I don't know whether Sree Iyer questioned Modi's actions at any time, but we both were being abused for that. That never touch Modi, etc. I understand a few of them are my good friends. I understand their feeling. See, some sort of cult has been developed. That is also, it is there in politics. People cultivate their followers and you become an icon, and that is how elections are won also. Nothing wrong in that. Therefore, I understand them sympathetically and even empathetically. I understand their pain and their anguish when their leader is slightly criticized from any corner. So these two extremes shows that Sree Iyer is a force to reckon with. His intellect, once it is troubling the both extremes, that means it is a balanced intellect. And I hope we will enjoy his intellectual feast today. Thank you.
Thank you, TG, sir. I now invite Mr. Sree Iyer to speak to us on tonight's topic, Who Painted My Money White? After his presentation on the topic, we will move to the moderator's question and finally questions from the audience, thus concluding this 2 hours open forum. So join me in welcoming Mr. Sree Iyer to the dais. Iyer, sir, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Jay Chandran. Thank you for those kind words, Mohandas ji. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be on Clubhouse on this forum. And namaskaram to each and every one of you who are listening out there. First off, before I even go into the topic, I wanted to dwell a little bit upon what is the difference between namaste and namaskaram. And this is something, this is more of curiosity for everybody. Namaste, in my opinion, is a sandhi of two Sanskrit words, naman and asita. That means I bow to you. Whereas namaskaram is naman to your akaram or the form. It's a more respectful way of addressing. And in my opinion, that is the more appropriate way to address this audience because I'm not seeing any of you in person. You are just hearing me and I'm hearing you. So namaskaram to everybody. Let's go to the book, Who Painted My Money White? Why did I write this book? P Gurus started publishing articles in April 2016, and our first big expose was the Augusta Westland case, where the UPA machinery was trying to hang the whole thing on a retired Air Force chief, and everybody else, they made it look as if nobody else was culpable in this. And then when we went through the Italian court judgment, which was in Italian, it was an appellate court in Milan. When it said that, even the crudest translations by Uncle Google showed they hand off the entire family, and it even had a template for how a defense deal goes down in India, how much cut the administration gets, how much cut the military gets, how much cut the politicians get, and so on and so forth. It was mind blowing. At that same time, there was a discussion in Rajya Sabha. My articles were introduced as evidence. Essentially, my article was nothing new. It was just a translation of an Italian court judgment in English. That was it. Yet, that's what made the name. And from that point forward, P Gurus suddenly shot on the radar of politicians, especially, and then bureaucrats, and so on and so forth. Now, as I started writing all these articles, we covered extensively the corruption of the Chidambaram family, of the Gandhi family, of the Sharad Pawar family, and so on and so forth. And lo and behold, in one of those times, I happened to talk to a gentleman from Kerala who happened to be a chartered accountant who mentioned that 100 chartered accountants were tasked to take money that came off of a container and set up, fake corporations and so on and so forth. So that part, that specific thing did happen. The fact that two containers, each containing 5,000 crores, came into the Kochi port and was docked in the dark of night, all that happened. So from that point, then what I also saw was the demonetization that was announced on November 8th, 2016. So I tried to connect these two dots in a fictional manner, and that is how this book was formed. How many of the things in that are real? How many of them are imaginary? That is up to the reader to judge. There are certainly some things that run similar to the political events of that time, and the more clinching evidence that came after the book was released, and in fact it was released in Kochi, and the chief guest for that was the ex DGP of Police, Dr. TP Sen Kumar, an economist, and also Sri Mohandas ji. And Dr. Sen Kumar said that when he was the chairman or managing director of Kerala State Road Transport Corporation, they used to get a lot of these fake notes. I'm talking about 2005 to 2000, whatever, 2000, till now. I think the fake currency has not gone away. And sometimes he wanted to check whether the bank is able to detect the fake note from the real note. So he said in one experience, he goes to a State Bank of India and then shows to the cashier, he shows two identical notes and says, one is fake, one is real. Can you identify it? And lo and behold, the cashier identified the Pak uh, printed note as the real thing. So Pakistan was actually printing Indian currency, and it was doing a better job of it than India itself. I mean, that could be also the fact that the number of times the money was in circulation may have been less. So the long and short of it is India has been buffeted by fake currency for a long time. Under UPA, there was a benign wink, wink, nod, nod. I won't notice that the money comes in and then it gets distributed to one section of the society. Now, again, Dr. T.P. Senkumar mentioned in that address, he said, and I think Mohandas ji will agree with me on this, that most of the good real estate in Kerala, whether it is oceanfront or riverfront or the along the national highway, is all being owned by members of one community. I mean, people can ask me the questions and I'll tell you who it is. But the fact is, how is it that amongst all the people, just one section of the community got enriched? You can say that, okay, this a majority of these people went to Gulf and therefore they got rich there. But something doesn't match. It was not as if only one section of the community was going to Gulf. Everybody had a chance to go to Gulf. Initially, maybe for a year or so, but after that, it was across the board. Everybody got a chance to go and work in the Gulf. And I'm talking about the Gulf boom of 70s and 80s. After that, there was a lull. And then when the Persian Gulf War happened in 1989, there was a cutback. and now again we are seeing that it is actually on the wane, it is declining. So the most important takeaway for me when I was writing this book was said, look, this is a big problem, because this money has completely gotten itself embedded in the Indian financial system. If the banks, which are the last stop, if the banks themselves cannot detect what is real and what is fake, then how is it that a common man can do it? Essentially, now, after the book was released and when I started connecting even more dots, I am beginning to understand that, remember, in 2016, a lot of things happened in India. First off, the Uri attack by terrorists, and then India's surgical strike response, and then evidently this is again based on news items that came at that time. Pakistan wanted to flood India with fake currency notes. They turned on three of their mints that worked 24 hours to churn out a lot of fake currency, and that fake currency was about to enter India. I mean, all this is, intel, not fact. So please treat it as such. And then the real date of demonetization was supposed to be the 21st of November 2016. Yet it was brought forward by 13 days, 1 3, and it was announced on the 8th of November. In fact, the then finance minister did not know of all this stuff. Mr. Modi had a small team of, I believe, 6 people, including the current RBI governor, in that team, which oversaw the entire process of making sure that there will be enough money, and that the ATMs will be tuned. And the reason the ATM tuning had to happen, see, now you start putting together the dots, listeners. Why was the dimension of the rupee note changed? That is very, very important. And if you um, why was the dimension of the rupee note changed? Excuse me for that. And why was the new currency 2000 also had a change in dimension? Because that added an extra work for the ATM machines to be recalibrated for size. So all this pain, why did the government take that? Because in my opinion, the Pakistanis were going to flood India with this fake currency. Now, was it all caught? I have no idea. But it appears that the tail is still lingering. If you listen to the recent spat between Devendra Fadnavis, the ex-chief minister of Maharashtra, and the current minister Nawab Malik, one of the things that both are talking about is how well did you work against fake currency? How well did my team work against fake currency? So, fake currency as a problem is still here, and that hasn't gone away. And the the whole the whole challenge in front of India is how well can India recover from that. In clearly, India cannot allow cash to be circulated. Everybody needs to jump on the digital finance bandwagon, but it's not something that is going to happen like a flip of a switch. I encourage each and every one of us to use digital currency, even with the flower vendor, if possible, vegetable vendor, milk vendor, even the little things, because that is how we will get ahead of this problem. And the recent numbers called cash in circulation versus the GDP, this is a ratio. um, this measure, this ratio of cash in circulation versus the GDP has again hit a new high of around 15 in the recent past. And there was a hangout that I did on this just 2 days ago, and this is a real concern, because how is it that now, that is in 2021, we are still finding that cash is playing such a huge role in India. Now, the other incidents that are mentioned in the book are, some are real, some are made up. And the fact that India is now so vulnerable to attacks is something that is very regrettable. I'm glad that some of the things that the Modi government has put in place, such as Article 370 and a more muscular, robust national investigating agency now. They have a branch office in Chennai now. Imagine an agency of that importance didn't have a branch office in Chennai. So I think a lot of things are happening in the backdrop, and this book just touches the tip of the iceberg. There is much more that can be covered. And what I would like to do is at this point, maybe I can take a break and start answering questions. And in the process of the questions, more and more information will start coming out. But certainly for me, after the book was printed, after the book was released, what I heard from Dr. Senkumar and also a follow-up conversation with Mohandas TGG, it just blew my mind because the magnitude that I predicted in my book is nothing compared to the reality. Also, look around yourself. How many new enterprises are coming in Kerala? Why is it that Kerala has so much jewelry shops? Jewelry is a very, very high investment intensive operation. How is it that every other day you see a new jewelry chain? I mean, it's not just one place. You go to any city, there's a swanky showroom of this jewelry chain. So all these things point to the fact that there is a lot of money sloshing about. There's a lot of money that is being put, and these are all places where you can convert the fake currency into real currency. This represents a big danger for India because if the people start losing faith in their currency, then it's sort of like a foundation that gets shaken and shaken badly. So thank you very much. And at this point, I'll just take a break and maybe if we can take a few questions and then we can come back and then continue on here and there because some questions can take a while. And I'm sure Mohandas TG will remember that book release function day where there was so much discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Iyer sir. Let's get to the questions and let's talk about the money laundering from your book itself. That is the network of chartered accountants approaching people who run simple shops like cycle puncture repair shops. How does that factor in? Can you explain that laundering game a little bit? Expand on it without giving too much away from the book.
Absolutely. So, if you look at the structure that the Indian government has for tracking fake currency and money laundering, these are all done by different departments, and they often don't talk to each other. But as a rule of thumb, I think as soon as the BJP came to power, they put together a system in place whereby they will start looking at transactions below 1 lakh. Before that, I don't think there was any limit like that. But if somebody were to put a limit saying that about this amount, I'm going to start tracking all transactions, then what people can do, the way to get around that is to split it up into smaller parts and then circulate it and take it from, let's say source is Kerala and the destination is some place in say West Bengal. Then what they would do is send it to the to 10 different recipients there. I'm not saying that this happened. I'm just saying it is possible to do something like this. And every one of the transactions will be below the limit of the trigger that would arouse an audit by the financial crime investigative agencies. And therefore what happens is money which will become, see, if you want to transfer say 10 lakhs, then and if you have 90,000 as a limit per person, all you need to do is to have 12 people get it. And then the money, once it reaches these 12 people, they withdraw the money, and then everybody comes and congregates at a place, and it is sent and it is put back together for the person on the receiving side. Ergo, you move 10 lakhs from place A to place B without anybody knowing it. You are using the normal banking channels. You are making it look as if it is a completely legitimate operation. So these kinds of things are prevalent. If you also notice one thing that the Modi government did, I think around 2015, they closed down tons of shell companies. And the reason that was done was because the shell companies were also a conduit where you could see, why would X give 90,000 to Y? They would make a fake invoice. Why would say that I provided services for you for this money, and then the amount was 90,000, and then the money then it gets taken out, and then it'll get spent somewhere else, and they'll show an expense for that. Essentially, what happens is the money went from place A to place B in a legitimate fashion. It went into company A and then got out of company A and went to somewhere else, and that was it. So the entire operation was happening in broad daylight. And I don't know at what point the Indian government became alive of this money laundering problem, but this was another huge issue. That's just one way of doing it. There are other things also that you can do. Now let's say that let's say the government knows that the money is coming in from Kerala, so Kerala is under the scanner, high alert, everybody is watching every transaction. So then this person can take the money from there, move it to another place, quieter place, maybe Odisha, and then do all the things there, and then take that money and give it to a Hawala person, who in turn will take these rupees, take a 15% cut, and give this person who's giving him the money 15% less converted in dollars to in Dubai. So all this person has to do is take a flight to Dubai, go there and get the Hawala's equivalent guy on the other side. That could be somebody from the D company, and get the dollars. Now he takes those dollars, goes to a bank or a financial institution such as Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. There are many companies. Then give them saying that this is the cash, this is my Indian passport, I need a participatory note. Now what happens? The participatory note gets issued without the name, and he gets that participatory note. What this person will then do is take this participatory note, invest it in another shell company based out of Mauritius. Okay, so the money gets into the Mauritius company. The Mauritius company will take that money and invest it in India stock market. Why is it doing that? Because anything in and out of Mauritius is not taxed. The capital gains out of a gain of selling shares, money made, is not taxed. So just follow me here. The fake currency came in Kerala. From there, it went to Odisha. From there, through Hawala, it traveled to Dubai. In Dubai, it got converted into dollars. From those dollars, a participatory note is created. That participatory note, then it goes and gets deposited in a Mauritius based company's account. That money from there is taken and that is invested in India stock market. And then when you have this thing happening, see, everything is fake here, everything is coordinated. If 10 people go and put in a no name stock, suddenly the stock starts going up. Suddenly the pink paper start picking it up, and these people have friends in media also, and they say, hey, look, this thing is going up. So suddenly what happens is it starts drawing the common investors money also into this particular company stock. So the stock starts going up and up and up, and they know when to get out. So they will get out at a high. Now remember that anything in from Mauritius does not attract capital gains. Therefore, whatever money they made is all tax free. And guess what? The fake currency has now become white, and it is completely in dollars, and it is tax free, and it is legit money. And then what they will do is they will take that money and then they can do whatever they want with it. Suddenly they'll start having VC companies, those are funding startups in India, or they are being taken out and they go and buy properties in other countries. So this thing has become a game that everybody is doing a wink, wink, nod, nod. India knows the number of Hawala agents, yet it has not taken a little finger to go and shut them on. This is where I have angst against the Modi government. The Modi government knows all the Hawala agents in India. Every one of them is a Dawood plant. See, this guy, now it may not be Dawood himself, he may not be active, but his henchmen, his whatever you want to think about it, these people are still actively tampering in India's economy, in trying to destabilize India. How do you think suddenly, riots erupt in Shaheen Bagh? Did you not notice that people are being paid money for coming and spending time there? And this is all happening in plain sight. Everybody can see it on camera. Why isn't that any media person is asking where the heck did this money come from? The money that was actually on show is a lot less than what the actual money that went into organizing the protest. Today, the Indian government keeps saying that the farmers' protests are being financed by Khalistanis. I don't believe that. That's not the only group that is financing it. There is also this fake currency. It started coming in around 2000s and it has been around for 20 years now. I believe that currency is completely embedded. There may be people with houses where if you go and knock down a wall, you will see all this money coming tumbling out. Now, then you can ask the question, how can they encash the old 500 and 1000 rupee notes? Because now it is no longer legal tender. But there is a clause here. Remember that when the demonetization was enacted, 8th November, you and I at 8 p.m. for us completely it became useless. But people like banks outside of India who also accept rupees, they can't shut down right away. There was a window, I think, for 6 months. And many people, it is believed, including some in every party, let's just say it that way, they found a way to take some of this money, fake money, and put it in banks in Nepal or in Dubai, and then from there it again became legit. So this is why demonetization failed. That there was one critical step that was supposed to have been taken, that required the consent of the then finance minister, and it is believed that the then finance minister refused to give that order, and that sort of set the whole stage for it to not be as effective as it was intended. So I hope I answered your question. It was a little long, but I'm sitting in a car. I parked myself at a place where I don't have to worry about signal strength and all that, and I'm answering this question. Hopefully, our listeners understood how the fake currency becomes white.
Yes, sir. That was very clearly defined and explained. And moving on to the next question comes to the finance minister. Actually, I'm not talking about the previous finance minister. I'm talking about the finance minister from your book. The gist about him being blackmailed into buying the paper from a specific supplier. Is that a true anecdote or something that is fiction? Or how does that play out in our political scenario? If you could
Well,
explain.
I'll give you this is a real time incident. Remember Shashi Tharoor Meher Tarar?
Yes, sir.
This lady was a journalist, and this guy was seen with her for 4 days in Dubai, and his wife was still alive, and she threw a fit because she used to live in Dubai for many years, and she started getting information from there about all his, peccadillos. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and this person is a fairly junior minister compared to the then finance minister. That man, there have been open recordings and interviews given by opposition politicians as to how he favors girls from a particular country. I'll even name the country for you, Uzbekistan. So there is incidents of this happening. See, what happens is the ISI knows every little detail because they have their agents working in all these banks where the money is getting transferred. On top of that, where is Dawood Ibrahim residing? In Clifton Road, Karachi. They know that this Turkey is capable of creating havoc in India's financial system. So they know a lot of information. The only way you can stay above this is not to handle the money yourself. Don't take money, don't be corrupt, don't launder money. I mean, I can tell you that some of the investigations that are coming out in this Aryan Khan, and then afterwards the Home Minister of Maharashtra state government being put under jail. A lot of stuff is happening in the background where they are beginning to establish direct links between some of the ministers and members of some of the political parties that are in power in Maharashtra with that of the D Company gang. And these are all people that are they declared international terrorists, and if they are dealing with them, they're buying properties from them or they're shielding them, then that is actually a crime. That's like treason. They are committing treason against their country. So all these things will tell you that there is a huge problem, and that the then finance minister, he has never said no. He has never rebutted all the accusations against him that he's a womanizer, that he goes around. I mean, it's just laughable how much that person has, been indulging. And his son, who's also now a member of parliament, he's no less. I mean, I publish a fair set of articles in P Gurus on these things. It's all common knowledge. In fact, there is even a transcript of a phone conversation between his son and his son's head honcho, who was, managing all his things for him. So it is despicable. These people, they objectify women. They have absolutely no respect for, what I say. It's Shakti. Hinduism completely reverse its women. We believe that it is the Shakti that is the most important cosmic form in the nature. Shiva Shakti. Shiva and Shakti are two, but it is a Shakti that has the most amount of power. I mean, anyway, this is just my read of what little Hinduism I know. But yes, there is the UPA people are not saints. In fact, the political class in India, barring a few that I can count on my fingertips, they are all compromised as far as the one of the three W's as vices are concerned.
Understood, sir. Before we move to more serious questions, I'm indulging in a little bit of gossip with my
Yes,
last
yes.
question. From your who painted my money white? Actually, it has sent the Reddit community into a frenzy trying to identify the real names. But Maida, fair share, we have identified. But who is Dalda?
So, so see, my book is a book of fiction, and it's a book that I wrote essentially to try and do the same thing like what you said, to keep the interest alive amongst people, so they can play this game of who's who. Dalda is not a single individual; it could be more a group of individuals, and so since it's a book of fiction, readers shouldn't try to establish one-to-one link. So a person may have four or five different traits. Two traits could be in one person on the book, another two traits could be in another character in the book. Remember, it is a book of fiction.
Yeah, but it is a book of fiction. But Amarnath Verma, he has different traits, but there is a certain novelish nature in him. I'm just giving the readers
If that is true, it's a pure coincidence.
and maker fun to Swarwana. Do you need me to go on?
No, 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 no. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, just a hint, who was the major rival of Mylapore Damodaran during his time in
Okay,
power?
so let us take let's set aside the book for a moment, and
Sure.
let us go back to how things ran in UPA.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Now, if you go back and say 2004 they came to power, and Mr. Chidambaram became the finance minister. In fact, Mr. Chidambaram has always been around finance since I think 1990s. First, he was the commerce minister under PV Narasimha Rao. Then he got shunted out. Then he somehow managed to come back and become the same minister towards the end of Narasimha Rao regime. Then under the Devagowda as well as the next person, um, I don't remember the name of the person, those two prime ministers, he was again the finance minister, and he knew how to butter up media editors. He's supposed to have unveiled a dream budget in 1997. It was all basically built out of the fruit of the labor of Narasimha Rao reforms from 1991 to 1996. So these guys, and then again he was back at the helm in 2004. And if you look at the movie, watch the movie Accidental Prime Minister, you'll see how Manmohan Singh was supposed to be prime minister and finance minister. And then on the day before the swearing in ceremony or something like that, the rug gets pulled from underneath his feet, and then he's told that it will be actually Chidambaram who will be the finance minister. So this person was still not actually running the show, so to speak, as much as perhaps Pranab Mukherjee was doing it. And Pranab Mukherjee was the more senior minister. And I think in 2008, when 26/11 happened, and the intended blame, the perpetrator, which these people want to hang it on Hindu organizations like the RSS, and that did not happen because, unfortunately for them, one terrorist was captured alive, even though the guy who captured him died of the wounds, the gunshot wounds. So they couldn't get that ram that directive through. So in order to make it look like there was indeed a intelligence failure and that a good person is going to be put in charge of home, guess what? Mr. Chidambaram became the home minister. Now, we have to remember around that time there was, and who became finance minister? Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. Now, Pranab Mukherjee was not happy with Mr. Chidambaram as the home minister. Why? In fact, there was a meeting that took place. I don't remember if it was London or New York, one city outside of India, where Manmohan Singh had to basically, set the truce between Chidambaram and Pranab Mukherjee because Pranab Mukherjee alleged that Chidambaram was tapping into his phone. So Chidambaram would not want to move away from money. He wanted to be always having the till on. He wanted to have the control over finance. And when Pranab Da was kicked upstairs to become the president, guess who became the finance minister again? And Mr. Chidambaram. And it is believed in those last 2-3 years, it was Mr. Chidambaram who was more or less running the cabinet meetings. Remember, in the second term, Manmohan Singh was completely a caged parrot. I mean, he couldn't say anything. And it was just the fear that if he stepped down, that somehow Rahul Gandhi will be ushered in the middle of the night. That was what kept him from resigning. This is again my read on the situation. He didn't want to resign. However, if you look at the way the thing is described in the book, it is quite different from what people saw outside. Again, I'm taking some liberties because I'm writing a book of fiction. In fact, Mohandas ji and I had a conversation once. I say some situation where the president starts running the country. He said, "Oh, there is no such provision like this." I said, "Sarji, just go with me. This is just a book of fiction. That's why I wrote it that way." So I hope I explained to you. It is believed that within the period of 2012 to 2014, it was actually Chidambaram that was running the country. And also, by the way, listeners, from the time 1980 when Indira Gandhi came back to the power up until from 1990 up until 1980 up until 1996, that 16-year period, more or less it was Narasimha Rao who was running the country, believe it or not. It is you have to understand and read a lot of books to put together the dots, but Indira Gandhi never took a decision if Narasimha Rao said no. And in when Rajiv Gandhi came, he had his 2-3 buddies, but he couldn't manage it. They all fell out of favor, and then he had to go back to Narasimha Rao. It was Narasimha Rao who was a steady hand behind the Rajiv Gandhi government also.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Yeah, thank you, yes, sir. That was very well put in. And just a sub question to that. So,
Yeah.
so it is your reading that Chidambaram had a hold even on IK Gujarat. He was the prime minister. Just I didn't
Oh
want to
yeah, yeah.
interrupt.
He
Yeah,
was a finance minister. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
He had a hold even on IK Gujarat. So,
Yes,
how
yes.
did he? How did he get to become this powerful? With no visible background in the political spectrum, which was a requirement to most of the people at that time. How did he get to
Yes.
become this powerful?
So again, it is believed that his first big strike in terms of like striking gold was Indian Bank. It was a public sector bank. It was headquartered, I think, in Chennai. And I don't know how many of you remember that Indian Bank went through a crisis in the mid 90s and late 90s, and it is believed that the considerable amount of depositor money found its way into other hands, and it is also believed that it was that money that Mr. Chidambaram used to somehow become number two in Tamil Manila Congress that Mupanar had started in Tamil Nadu. You remember 1996, 2 weeks before or 3 weeks before the elections, Mupanar started that, and they actually had a fair amount of success that one time, 1996. And then when Mupanar died, the whole thing fell away, and Chidambaram had his own party. And then finally, in 2004, in fact, when he joined as finance minister, he was not part of the Congress party. He was his own party and all that. I think he somehow, quote unquote, merged it into Congress, and then again, he was a full fledged congressman. I hope that explains it. That was the first big strike.
And to add on to that, Indian Bank was founded by Ramasamy Chettiar, who was
Yes,
coincidentally Chidambaram's mom's uncle from
yes,
her.
yes, yes. If you
So
look at my book, C
yeah,
Company, I
yeah.
actually show the family tree.
Yes, I'm just actually reading out of it, sir.
Okay, okay.
As we speak. I'm just
Right,
reading
right,
out of
right.
it. So you are the source. So uh, coming back to the serious questions, sir.
Mm.
From the Kerala scenario, I don't know how much you have studied the system of cooperative societies and cooperative banks in Kerala, but if you have, can you please expand on how these cooperative societies and cooperative banks factor into this money laundering and that happened during and after demonetization, if they do at all?
Yes. So, yeah, in fact, they're very tightly coupled with this whole thing. I don't remember when it started, but politicians started using cooperative banks to basically park some of their money. And again, see, at any given point of time, we have to always remember that when you start making inordinate amount of money, you cannot keep all of it as black, and you cannot keep it as money also. You never know. So they have to find legitimate routes for it. And it is my belief that before all this money laundering, tax havens, these things happened, which started, I think, after 2000s. Before that, politicians used to park their money in cooperative banks. And if you remember, when demonetization was announced, Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had said that you cannot exchange money at cooperative banks. In other words, those people who had bank accounts in cooperative banks could not exchange it at the cooperative bank. They had to go to a normal bank to exchange it. So this caused a lot of anguish, and the main reason for that was that the government had strong suspicion, information that in states like Kerala, Maharashtra, perhaps Gujarat, and maybe Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka also, that a lot of the fake currency had been parked there as legit currency, because cooperative banks are not exactly administered under the Reserve Bank of India. In other words, they don't fully come under the RBI norms. It is the state government. The state government has a certain arm. That's the one that is actually overseeing these things. Only in the recent past has RBI tried to make it more formal. I don't believe even today the cooperative banks are completely under they don't have to conform to Basel reforms. Their cash reserves ratios are not monitored. So that was one of the other way that this government, Modi government, tried to limit the damage from fake currency. You ask me any question, Jayachandran, I can tell you that it all comes back to the primary source. How do I cut off this fake currency from entering mainstream? I mean, I can criticize Modi for a lot of things, but for a couple of things that he does, when he takes a decision, however unpalatable it is, he sticks by it. He doesn't let go, and he does the best he can with it. It is very difficult. Even today, I'm telling you, the RBI said 99.3% of the money came back. Now, many people off the record have told me that the RBI expected, after demonetization, to get 87% of the money back. That meant the 13% they felt was black money. See, remember, black money is legitimate currency that was printed and released by RBI, but that did not pay taxes on it. Loose cash and things like that. That they thought would not come back in. However, people have told me off the record that it is 113% that came back. So you do the math, 87%, 113%. So 26% more came back. Now that 26%, if you think about what was the size of the economy at that point, I think India was $2 trillion economy, or $2.2 trillion economy in 2016. So you see how much of a damage it can do. Also, remember, we have to look at the amount of times the cash gets circulated. It's called cash, and circulated cash is, I think it is M1 or M3 in the RBI. It's a measure that they release. But in a developing country like India, it is 10x. When I say 10x, what does it mean? Let's say that you work in a company. Jayachandran works in a company A. The company A has to make payroll. So the company A will send its cashier to the bank. The bank gives him the cash for disbursing as salaries. That cash is, so bank is a first source. RBI gives it to the bank. Bank gives it to the cashier. So you have two hands changed. After that, you the employee get it, third hand, and then you the employee, then you might use part of your salary to pay a home loan, which goes back to the bank. That is four. So in that case, your cash in circulation for that part of your money is 4x. However, if you pay money to buy groceries, flowers and things like that, there the circulation is much more, because the grocery person will go to somebody else. So the long story short, what I'm saying is, this amount of fake currency, when it is in circulation, can wreak a lot of damage. How did that money find itself into the Indian mainstream? The real estate prices, they've gone up through the roof. And now you're also seeing that builders are willing to let their high rises just wait without selling it for years on. Yeah, and in Mumbai, there are high rise apartments that have been not sold for 5 years. Nobody seems to be bothered. Why? Because it is not a loan that the person took to build the building. It is black money that was used to build that building. In fact, Dr. Swami in a press conference claimed that 1/6 of all real estate in Bengaluru that is being used by all these MNCs and all that stuff is actually owned by Chidambaram via Benamis. Benamis. And that part hasn't been investigated at all. All we are trying to do, that is P Gurus and Dr. Swami and the ED and the CBI, blah, 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 all are trying to do is try to send him to jail on one simple matter of bribe, that is in the INX media case. There are, like, this is not even a tip of the iceberg. It is a nothing. And there is so much more that the guy has swindled of India's wealth. So this is how this has impacted India.
All right. Thank you, Ayer sir. And Ayer sir, before I go to the next question, I'd like to go to TG sir a bit regarding the cooperative societies and cooperative banks. TG sir, would you like to add a few thoughts on that issue, the cooperatives? from a Keralite perspective.
Yeah, it's true that most of the black money in Kerala is parked in cooperative banks. Therefore, there was a demand from CPM at that time. They had a huge demonstration in front of RBI zonal headquarters in Trivandrum, not for mitigating the trouble which common man is suffering. Their demand was that exchange of old notes, the power to exchange old notes be given to the cooperative banks also, which Reserve Bank of India refused because cooperative banks are not coming under Reserve Bank of India. It is coming under NABARD, another agency. So RBI said, you are strangers to us. You can draw 4,000 rupees per week, nothing more than that. If you have more currency, then it is your problem. There is a system through which you can change your currency, go to a scheduled bank, nationalized bank, and get your currency changed. But the cooperative banks cannot go to scheduled bank because they have parked this cash, unaccounted cash of various political parties from LDF, UDF, probably BJP also, I don't know. So they could not do that. And in the process, it is estimated that CPM lost around 600 to 800 crores. They could not convert it into cash. There was absolute chaos in CPM. But I don't know how they made money, probably through gold or something. But one thing I have noticed, which my friend Sree Iyer, I think one day he will have to write a book on Indian judiciary. You know, a 2G case was initiated by Dr. Swami, and I was with him 4 or 5 times when he appeared in the court. And this A. Raja was made accused, and he has to resign. Kanimuri has to resign, but Chidambaram was let scot-free by court. I was there in the lower court when the judgment was read by one Mr. Saini. He was the magistrate. He said, I don't find anything wrong with Chidambaram's decision. In fact, the 2G auction idea was overturned by A. Raja along with the P. Chidambaram. Raja took the decision, he signed the paper, went to Chidambaram, and got his signature also. Chidambaram ratified it. Now, Dr. Swami went up to Supreme Court, but Supreme Court said A. Raja had a mala fide intention while signing this, but Chidambaram didn't have mala fide intention. So what a strange finding, you see. It was a division bench of Supreme Court headed by Justice K.S. Radhakrishnan. Radhakrishnan himself wrote the judgment. And you know who is Radhakrishnan? Justice Radhakrishnan is a Malayali. He delivered the first Jallikattu banning judgment way back in 2011, I think. And Jallikattu was totally banned. He put forth the theory that like human beings, animals also have a right to life, which is protected under Article 21, and blah blah, so many other things. He gave a big judgment. He was a sitting judge in Supreme Court, and he was awarded Man of the Year award by PETA, that animal-loving thing organization from somewhere abroad. And, a sitting judge went to that country and received the award for a judgment which he wrote in favor of the litigant. PETA moved the petition for banning Jallikattu, and Radhakrishnan giving a favorable judgment to PETA. PETA in turn gives a Man of the Year award to Radhakrishnan. And Radhakrishnan goes abroad and receives that. And he is a sitting judge of Indian Supreme Court. That is K.S. Radhakrishnan. And when K.S. Radhakrishnan was about to retire, there was a case regarding a road accident in Supreme Court, which someone was asking for compensation, and he fought up to Supreme Court. That case came up, and a Supreme Court judgment came out in which they instructed Government of India to form a road safety authority and put Justice K.S. Radhakrishnan as the chairman of that, who is due for retirement in the coming May 31st. Salaries, perquisites, his staff and other things will be decided by him, and that is to be provided by Government of India. It is a Supreme Court judgment. Now, when two people have signed a document, the Supreme Court says that one had malafide intention, that is A. Raja, and the other man is a gentleman, he never had any malafide intention. And you know, CBI several times tried to arrest Chidambaram, and I remember his arrest was prevented by Supreme Court 28 times. And
Not
Karti
Supreme Court,
Chidambaram,
oh, Saini's court, Saini Special Court.
yeah, he several times it went up to Supreme Court. I am telling you, total Chinese Court, Magistrate Court, Delhi High
Yeah.
Court, and Supreme Court put together, 28 times his arrest was prevented by various courts. And 32 times Karti Chidambaram's arrest was prevented. And I won't make any comment, but remember the date on August 19th, 2019. Arun Jaitley was seriously sick. He was on life support on August 19th. And August 21st night, Chidambaram was arrested. When Jaitley was absolutely unconscious and was ticking away on the life support, and Jaitley died on August 23rd. August 19th, August 21st, and August 23rd. I am not making any bad comment on anybody. But the Indian court, the role of Indian court, even in Kerala, you see the recent smuggling incident, Sree Iyer may be knowing.
Yes, yes.
In that, NIA took a stand that it's a terrorism related case because it is organized smuggling of gold, which has been defined in PMLA Act, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, as a terrorist act. NIA Act also says that. When you do an organized smuggling, that means you are hitting at the root of Indian economy. It is like just shooting down or robbing your treasury. It is a terrorist act, a financial terrorism. But the Kerala High Court took a view that no, that will not stand here. This is not organized. They know how to justify their thing. And NIA was left an orphan. And I don't know why NIA didn't go to Supreme Court. That could be another story. And Supreme Court may find some fantastic things to justify that. And in between, during Modi's regime, the prevention of corruption was little bit modified. Nobody noticed it. Somebody like our Gopi Krishna, etc., created the hue and cry, but it did not catch traction. Some small change was made by which a citizen cannot file a corruption case now unless you get an approval from the government. So therefore, you see, 2G case started as a private case by Dr. Subramanian Swamy, and then it exploded. Now, I don't think Swamy can file any other case. He filed another case, that is Aircel Maxis case, and this INX Media case on which Chidambaram was arrested is only a subsection of Aircel Maxis case. Aircel Maxis is the Himalaya, and INX Media is a small mountain attached to Himalaya. And now, who is going to capture the Himalaya? I don't know. How long it is going to take Indian courts to complete these procedures, God only knows. High and mighty, they are operating in courts also. And I make this statement in a responsible manner. I am a practicing advocate in Kerala High Court. I am naming a judge, and his name is K.S. Radhakrishnan. I have told this at my advocates' friends also that let Radhakrishnan come to me in a seminar. I will expose him, not up to his skin, but up to his bone marrow. I will expose. This is the way Indian judiciary is functioning. I am sorry to state that I am not discrediting the whole judiciary, but there are a bunch of judges, probably even today, who are colluding with this type of forces. Supreme Court says that no, you have to reconsider the ambit of 124A, that is anti-national activity. That is the first section of IPC, which is describing what is anti-national activity. And all precautions have been taken that no frivolous case can be filed by any authority. 124A is a full page section along with its explanation. That much has been explained. But still, the present Chief Justice N.V. Ramana feels that the ambit is to be shortened. And in the last 2019 election, it was a point of Congress manifesto that they will repeal Section 124A. Now, Supreme Court says that merely because you are a Maoist, you cannot be arrested. You have to do some terrorist activity, then only you can be arrested. Kerala High Court say that merely you have distributed some leaflet against India, you don't become a terrorist. The leaflet should be read by somebody, and he should take up arms in him with him, and he must create some trouble. Then only it becomes an offense. That means Supreme Court and Kerala High Court is openly advocating that you can campaign against the security and integrity of India. Unless your campaign affects somebody else and he takes up arms in his hand, you are a free man. Nothing, nobody can touch you. This is the way Indian judiciary is interpreting the law. And when Modi government, with great difficulty, he could convince the opposition also, and in Rajya Sabha also, he passed National Judicial Appointment Commission, which was ratified by 16 state assemblies. Only 9 assemblies are needed to ratify this type of constitutional amendment. But Modi got it ratified by 16 states. The other states said, "Arey, ho gaya, abhi 9 ke jagah 16 mil gaya aapko, abhi kya hai?" And it was passed. And a 5-bench constitutional bench is sitting in Supreme Court. 3 judges say that this is 4 judges, I think. This is ultra virus of the Constitution, and therefore it is dismissed. No, Indian Parliament is zero in front of Supreme Court. Lok Sabha is zero, Rajya Sabha is zero, assemblies are zero. Only Supreme Court judges are running the country, and who appoints them? They themselves appoint them. So Mohandas appoints Mohandas as the Chief Justice of India, and Mohandas is ruling India. The elected Narendra Modi and the common man Manoj and Sree Iyer doesn't count at all. This is the situation, the legal situation in which our country has landed. By God's grace, there are good judges also. That is why the whole thing is not collapsing. As once Justice V.R. Krishna said that people will come and demolish this red building called Supreme Court. Behave yourself. That was his advice. But he himself has committed bigger blunders than this. Anyway, he is no more, so I will not make any comment on him. Thank you.
Thank you, teacher, sir.
Uh,
Iyer, sir.
yeah,
Uh,
to add to what Mohandas ji just said, this government conferred the title of Padma Vibhushan on Mr. Arun Jaitley.
yes, sir. And Prafulla Prakash is and was a deal maker in your book. Always. No, you cannot stop me, sir. I'm going to throwing in similar names from your book, whether you call it a fiction or a reality.
It's an amazing coincidence, Manoj.
Yeah, it is an amazing coincidence. And, sir, on a serious note, TG sir just spoke about the judiciary. And he just mentioned the name K.S. Radhakrishna Panikkar, who was the former Justice of Supreme Court. And amazingly, coincidentally, uh, he was involved in many such financial scam state judgments. That is, if I remember correctly, he was the one who the part of the uh, two judge bench which heard the SEBI versus Sahara. And that brings me to the question back to P. Chidambaram, NSCL case, and Jignesh Shah. I know you expanded it quite well on your book C Company, which is available on Amazon for the that was for the audience. But without giving too much detail, spoiling your book too much, can you expand on that case and Jignesh Shah, why Chidambaram went after him?
Absolutely. Now, those of you who have not read the C Company book, I'll just set out the scenario for you. Remember, I told you Chidambaram's claim to fame arise. First thing he was accused of, why he had to quit the Narasimha Rao cabinet as commerce minister, was that he was accused in a stock transaction out of some company out of Bengaluru, and he tried to act very high and mighty, righteous, saying that if anything is proven against me, I will resign. And Narasimharaoji, he knows who's right and who's wrong. Apara Chanakya that he is, he promptly said, "No, no, you resign first. Let the the results, the investigation proceed at its pace." So he was forced to resign at that point. So, but he never ever got far away from the way a stock market will allow you to make money. So I told you one way to make money off of the stock market, especially when you know that it is being stage managed to pump up a stock, that is one way. Now, what was happening was, if you look at India's stock market scenario in the 90s, and I was in India for a year between 89 and 90, and I used to have an office adjacent to the Hyderabad Stock Exchange. So there was a Hyderabad Stock Exchange, there was a Chennai Stock Exchange, there was a Bengaluru Stock Exchange, there was a Trivandrum, Kochi. There were like 40, 50 stock exchanges, and everybody traded on the floor, meaning that there'll be somebody shouting, this so and so stock so much, so and so stock so much, and somebody will say, okay, I'll buy it, and then the transaction gets completed, and so on and so forth. However, in 1987, there was a crash in the Wall Street in the US, and after that, they started computerizing things, and India started computerizing its stock exchanges sometime around early 1990s. The BSE, the Bombay Stock Exchange, was the big player, and the Chidambaram noticed that BSA may not be able to modernize fast enough. So what he did was he sort of, not, I won't say overtly, but covertly backed the new rival exchange called National Stock Exchange, NSE, and the NSE from day one started doing electronic trading. However, the way these guys were doing electronic trading of shares, they were actually getting data via a satellite. So, for example, if somebody is trading stock sitting in Delhi, the way the data would go is on the terminal, he would punch buy 50 shares of, say, Infosys. That data will go up to a satellite uplink, and then from the satellite, it will be downbeamed into a NSE server, which will then reconcile and say, okay, somebody wants to sell, somebody wants to buy, the sale is done. So, because it was reliant on a satellite to do the trading, there was a small time during the day when the satellite was not visible to Earth or to India, because it's going around, orbiting around India. So for, I think, 1 hour or so during prime time, you couldn't do any trading because the satellite was not visible. So there was a hole. NSE would do trading, but they had two halves in trading. Now, Jignesh used to work at Bombay Stock Exchange. He was an engineer. He and another friend of his, they were actually asked to go and I think look at some stock exchanges like Singapore and other places where the computerization was already done. And he was working as part of the group to computerize Bombay Stock Exchange. However, once NSE came and then everybody started going gaga over NSE, this is the state of the art, this, that, and so on and so forth. Jignesh Shah decided that he will go and start his own operations on stock manipulation. So what he did was, this came a little later. Initially, his software was basically something that would allow people to trade shares at a fraction of the price of what the bigger established players. At that time, the established players were all foreign companies. I believe it was IBM, HP, and so on, and those were very expensive. And he brought in a lower cost stock trading transaction system. I think that's even today it's in vogue, called Odin, ODIN. So now let's then what happened was, at one point he figured out a way to not have, remember I told you there is a 1.5 hour time during the day because of the satellite movement that you could not trade shares. Now he figured out a way that you could do continuous trading, because I think he moved away from that satellite technology to something else. So that stock exchange he wanted to start, and he asked for permission from SEBI, and SEBI wouldn't give it. The reason SEBI wouldn't give it was because everything, the deck was completely stacked in favor of National Stock Exchange, to the extent that even BSE was finding that it was receiving stepmotherly treatment from the government. You have to remember, BSE is the oldest, or one of the oldest stock exchanges in India. It could have been Kolkata or Chennai that was the first one out the gate, but it is one of the oldest stock exchanges. That Dalal Street, all that stuff happened because Bombay Stock Exchange was the one that did that. So when NSE was having this, gap in terms of trading window, and Jignesha said that my stock exchange will be able to give you uninterrupted trading, because remember, trading is of company shares. That has nothing to do with the fact that a stock exchange is allowing you only trading between this time to this time and then from this time to this time with a gap in between. So clearly, Jignesha's idea had a superior advantage. It was a superior in quality. It was superior in performance. His stock trading software, I believe it is still being sold, called Odin, ODIN, Open Data something something. And it was just much better than the NSE. And every time NSE would try to compete with Jignesh, they would lose. I'll give you another simple example. Now, gold. Gold used to be sold in the form of bullion, the ingots form, and the purity of gold that used to be traded in exchanges like London and other countries was 99.5% purity. However, remember that India, the standard way of wearing gold jewelry is 22 carat, not 24 carat. 24 carat is 100% pure gold, but 100% pure gold is soft. So you cannot wear it like a abharanam. You cannot wear it like a chain, because it can easily break, or it can also some of it gets melted also, but it kind of wears off. So what India's goldsmith, the entire jewelry network does is, they'll add copper to it and maybe some other ingredients also to bring it down to 22 carat, and at 22 carat it is as pure as you possibly can get, and it still has the strength. So he noticed that there was no facility to trade in that kind of purity of gold. So that was one of the things that he exploited, and he brought this thing called MCX, multi commodity exchange. And before you knew it, he was the one guy who was offering a lesser purity gold ingot, which is what all the jewelers in India wanted. They didn't want to pay 99.5% purity. Gold is expensive. If somebody is willing to give 95% purity gold versus 99.5%, that 5% extra gold component is a significant number. So everybody wanted this less pure gold, because they knew that they were going to add copper to make the real jewelry. So some of these moves he made so quietly and adroitly, he was always one or two steps ahead. No matter how many ways the government backed NSE to try and stop him, they couldn't because of the sheer technical merit of the product. However, when the NSEL came along, this came after a few successes of Jignesha, by which time he had already established a relationship with Dubai's exchange and also with Singapore exchange. Now, they wanted to somehow curb him because NSE was going to just fall by the wayside. And this guy was basically not listening to any of the political pressures. You have to also remember a lot of politician money also finds its way into the stock market by way of Binami names. And there was another scandal on that. NSDL, for example, is one of those things. National Stock Depositories Limited. A lot of stuff in stock market. Many people don't apply their mind to understand what kind of shenanigans are happening. Even today, I'm telling you, SEBI is useless. They are asleep. They are wantonly asleep. Even when they hand down rulings which are supposedly very strong, they leave it with full of holes so that those can be overturned on appeal in an appellate court. So this is a game that they play because everybody looks good, right? Modi government says, oh yeah, we caught this perpetrator, he has to pay so many crores fine. Like for example, in NSE there is a co-location scam that was proven, and NSE was asked to pay 1,000 crore fine. 1,000 crores. Guess what? NSE has paid zero. And the managing directors, there were two managing directors. One was first guy was Ravi Narayan. The next one was Chitra Ramakrishna. They had also had to pay some fines. All of them managed to go and get a stay in appellate tribunal, and SEBI will never go and try to vacate these stays. Because they know that they created the problem by writing rulings that are full of holes. So my point in saying all this is that there was one system that was rigged to help those people who knew how the system worked, and then there was Jignesh Shah's enterprise set of companies which are basically working as a technological model of built with superior technology and built in a way that it cannot be manipulated. He never allowed co-location, for example. And co-location is a fairly technical way to cheat, and this is happening even in the United States, and it happened in US or India also. India will first go and get all the bad things from foreign countries. They will never take the good things, but the bad things they'll immediately go and absorb. So there is this crook called Ajay Shah. That fellow is still hanging around. He should be put in jail because he was the brains behind many of the stock market shenanigans that happened. His wife doesn't have a PhD, but she goes off as a PhD. She has even guided many students who've all got their PhDs. Nothing. I mean, sometimes I get frustrated with the Modi government that I have identified the banana, I have plucked the banana, I have peeled the banana, and I'm giving the fruit. Please eat it. And they don't want to eat it. So these are the kind of things that are happening. So in NSCL, they found one bad apple that they could exploit and bring Jignesha down. And the amount of torture that they put him through, I'm telling you, if you start listening to looking at the play of events, how the pink papers all suppressed the truth. I mean, many of them are going to rot in hell. I'm telling you, those editors who allowed publishing of those things, they're going to rot in hell. And there is absolutely no way they can justify some of the writings that they did. To this day, today, they don't want to settle it, because if that happens, then that means Jignesha's name will be cleared, he'll be vindicated, then they'll have to start looking at some other crimes that they've committed. In fact, Jignesha has personally sued Chidambaram and two of his baboons, and these two babus have actually managed to arm twist the finance ministry to cover their legal expenses. That is never done. These people did it in their own on their own authority. They exceeded the law. They broke the law, and now they have basically coaxed the finance ministry to cover their legal expenses. And who are the legal expenses? They'll go to all these high end lawyers who'll charge by lakhs and lakhs. Why should the government be paying it? The government means taxpayer. So the taxpayer, you are saying that somebody cheated me out of money, and you are suing, and then you are saying no, you have to pay for that guy's expenses also. So a lot of nonsense happening. So these are all some of my huge disappointments in the area of finance. I can tell you, if there is a grade less than F, I would give that to the Modi government. They have really messed it up in terms of trying to clean up some of the easy things that were there. Today is 2021. Jignesh Shah still awaits to try and get some justice. The other bad thing they did was they took one profit making company of his, and then they identified NSCL as a loss making company, and they said this profit making entity is worth so many crores, and the two shall merge, and the depositor should be taken money from this profit making company and be given. Lucky for him, thank God, Justice not Falimara, Rohinton Nariman knew what kind of a guy Chidambaram is, and he knew the background, and he ruled that you cannot do that, and therefore you cannot. So the money that was being used by one group company of Jignesha was spared from giving that money up to pay the NSCL dip. They are very clear. They don't want Jignesha back up. And here is the irony. It was Devendra Fadnavis's government at that time, and now the current government. They are supposed to unfreeze some of his assets, and they have not done that. So he has to again go back to the court and say that, look, the government is in contempt of the court order, and they have to unfreeze the assets, and they are not unfreezing it. So he can see the money, but he can't touch it. What kind of irony is this? And this is in thousands of crores. I mean, if you get me going, I might say things that might hurt a lot of people, because when I used to write about this, some of these vested interests used to curse me like anything on Twitter. They'll say your son will go and rot in hell. Your whole generations of people will be destroyed. What kind of nonsense is this? You are doing financial embezzlement, and if you have not done it, go and prove it in court. Why are you trying to kill the messenger? I mean, I'm telling you, some of these guys are such crooked in their mindset that, that is another huge pain. But it is my hope that Jignesh will come out of all this stuff unscathed, because the man, I know him, I've talked to him. I couldn't have written the kind of articles I wrote without understanding what makes him work, what makes him tick. After all, I'm an engineer who can write, he's an engineer who can run financial companies. And India lost a huge, he could have become another person as successful as the Adanis and Ambanis of the world. And he did everything above board. Everything above board. He paid tax on every cent of the money he earned. You can't find a single fault. Even in the NSCL, they couldn't find any rupee attached to his source. He never got it. This was mismanaged by a managing director. That was his mistake, in the sense that he brought this one person. I'm trying to remember his name. Anyway, that person turned out to be a crook, and at the right time he jumped sides. So all this NSCL was a manufactured thing to try and bring him down, and one by one. Do you know that MCX was sold for paisa on the rupee to others? They basically pulled every company of his from his hand. They practically wrested it out. Even the Singapore company, Dubai company. If you read the C company book, there'll be like a huge matrix of companies that he started. Many of them were successful, and before they could actually find their pride of place in the market, these things were all pulled away. I mean, Chidambaram has done so much behind the scenes because he wanted this P note game, participatory notes game, to go, and he wouldn't let anybody else come in. That was it. I don't think Chidambaram hated Jignesha. It was any one-on-one rivalry or anything like that. It is just that he had a very clear vision of how money was going to be made for some people using the stock market, and Jignesh's technology and his companies came in the way. Let's put it that way.
All right. And I believe the person who you spoke about at the end of your explanation was Anjani Sinha, right? The
Anjani Sinha,
Anjani,
exactly.
Anjani.
Yeah, let me tell
Yeah,
you. Okay, okay. If I could just add a one little thing.
please.
Anjani Sinha is the name of the guy. Okay. Now, the current finance minister was the commerce minister with independent charge, I think, in the 2014 initial days. Now, this NSCL thing was still pretty fresh in everybody's mind. And in a press conference, she was asked a question, what about Anjani Sinha? And you know what Madam Sitaraman said? Will you leave her alone? This lady doesn't even know Anjani Sinha is the name of a man. And she was our commerce minister. Then look at her progress. She goes on to become the defense minister. Now she's a finance minister. Come on now, India, I'm telling you, Rudyard Kipling gets proven right every day. He said incompetence hang around in India longer than anywhere else. This saying, I hate Kipling for all his other racist stuff, but this one is spot on. India loves to promote some of the incompetent nincompoops that are completely saturating the country.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, yes, sir. And coming to actually going to one scapegoat from another, uh, Sanjay Kumar Srivastava. And I believe, I know, you know that I'm coming to the NDTV frauds, your book.
Yes, yes.
So expand a bit on that. The reason why I'm harping on all your books that P. Chidambaram seems to be a prominent figure in all these scams and everything. So, what is this NDTV scam? Without giving too much away from your book, without spoiling your book too much, just can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, so you have two crooks here. One is Mr. Pranay Roy, and the other crook is Mr. Chidambaram. Why are they crooks? Why do I call them crooks? Crooks means somebody who doesn't use a straight path to go from place A to place B, takes a crooked path. Do you know that NDTV celebrated its 25th year of operation in the Rashtrapati Bhavan? Did you know that?
Yes, sir, I believe I read about that.
Yeah, 2013. And it
Yeah,
was Mr. Pranab Mukherjee who was the president at that time.
yeah.
How can the president give access to that? And what is it that these guys have pulled? क्या उखाड़ा इन्होंने? So anyway, so when 2017, when the book came, I'm sure Mr. Pranay Roy just was full of anger and saying that let's sue this guy. And then, luckily, what I did was, along with the book, which is the first half of the book, in the second half, I gave all the government's findings. So basically, what I had done in that book was to take government language and make it understandable to the common man as to the kind of fraud that was done. In NDTV, there was a whole bunch of money laundering done, and it is alleged that, like what Mohandas ji said, see, you have to look at it in a big picture. Aircel Maxis, NDTV frauds, NDTV, all these are tied together because of one common element. It is Chidambaram's money that made its way back into India in various forms, and it is believed that, I mean, the evidence has been placed in the in front of ED and CBI, but for some strange reason, this present government doesn't believe in acting on these things. If maybe they don't like bananas. That's all I can tell you. I'm peeling the bananas and giving it to them, and they don't like it. So, but what happened was, Sanjay Kumar Srivastava was one upright officer who wouldn't allow the some of the things that happened under NDTV, because they had an IRS officer who was essentially auditing NDTV accounts, and her husband was employed in NDTV. This is a conflict of interest. That person never revealed that. And then once you start digging further, you find out that this said IRS officer has very questionable integrity and moral values. So those are the things that got SK Sinha, Sanjay Kumar Srivastava into trouble, because he called them what he thought they were. And see, there is a Delhi that looks clean, and there is a Delhi that is full of worms, crap, and sewer. Nothing else I can way to describe it. That is the kind of lifestyle some people lead, but they are fine with it because they think that by putting perfume they can start smelling of roses. So some of this underbelly, Sanjay Kumar Srivastava was unearthing, and they were not willing to admit to that. In fact, one of the recently retired revenue secretary, Abhay Bhushan Pandey, was one of the people who was actively against. He was the one who made sure that S.K. Srivastava would be retired forcibly under 56J. So, which brings us to the bigger question. Every honest official who sticks to his guns is being rewarded under quotes by the Modi government by being dismissed without benefits, no retirement benefits, no nothing. On top of that, they'll come in and start putting court cases on them. Many of them sometimes fabricated. I have 3 or 4 friends of mine who are all suffering like this. So you are saying Babu should not only be corrupt, they should also be compliant. And by the way, if a Babu wants to stay honest, we'll make sure that he'll be tried for his honesty. What kind of a country has India become? Somehow that is one of the reasons why I'm writing all these books in fiction, Manoj, because I know the reason. I can probably stand up and give the names, and I can probably stay in court and find. But then my day in court will not come when I'm alive. That's what I'm afraid. I'm not afraid of an adverse judgment. I'm afraid that I would not get my day in the court. So anyway, so law. Sanjay Srivastava is a very, very, very regrettable incident. Prime Minister Modi knows this person personally, and yet he went along, which means that he is under compulsion to do some things, which is regrettable because many people think that he is pure as driven snow. But these events kind of cast a shadow over his moral compass.
Right. So I think you cannot throw the names around, but I can. The Sumana Sen was the IRS officer you was
Yes.
talking about.
Yes.
The NDTV assessing officer and her husband. That is by all account, he's an idiot. That is my personal. He's an idiot. How did he wound up with an IRS officer like Sumana Sen? That itself is a questionable past, as far as I am concerned. But because
You'll have to ask
no,
her that.
sorry,
You will have to ask her that question.
no, that's nobody can account for a personal taste, but
Right, right.
the connection is what makes the past questionable.
Yes,
Abhishar Sharma
yes.
is actually the torchbearer of the woke liberal journalism these days, if you can call him a journalist at that. But the connection is it is all jumbled up. How does this all connect back to Chidambaram, someone like Chidambaram? And I know it is all connected because he's all there. There in the background always, whether it is
Yeah,
the
so
NDTV scam, NSCL, anything.
the NDTV fraud, there are 2 books. One book is essentially just the first part of the crime. The second one is where Sanjay Kumar Srivastava's trouble started, and I started expanding on that. But if you look at the timeline during which all this happened, there was allegedly a kickback that Chidambaram received from a US company. I will leave it at that. And that money he wanted it brought back into India, and that is why the NDTV financing, creative financing, took place. About $150 million at those days. But then a lot of things happened that American company did not get the contract at that time, but it did get the contract under Modi's period. You see, this is the thing. These guys never go away. The underlying system will get its pound of flesh. It doesn't matter who's at the helm. Does Modi have time to go and look at every deal and say, okay, if I allow this deal to happen, this person's money is going to go from here to here and he's going to become richer? I'm in fact telling that don't allow National Stock Exchange to go public because 33% of the ownership is under Chidambaram and his Benami entities from using shell companies, that he will get money. It's all written in pgurus.com. You can go and read it there. It is clearly said that this is the guy who stands to benefit if NSE goes public, and they have to pay the 1,000 crore fine. How is the SEBI appellate tribunal still sitting on it? We have to, some of the laws. I don't know what to do. I mean, a stay cannot be indefinite. Mohandas ji can set me straight on this. What happens when some appellate authority gives a stay? Who vacates the stay? Is there an automatic vacation of stay, Mohandas ji?
No,
Digital.
there is no automatic vacation unless it is specified in the original order that we are staying it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, etc. If the time limit is specified, then it gets automatically vacated. Otherwise, the interested party has to move an application, argue in front of court, and get the stay lifted. That is the legal position.
See, everything is a fixed game in this, Manoj. I mean, viewers, sometimes I feel like, what is this Bharat Varsha? When is it going to actually feel that it is free? It is independent today, but is it free? Is it? Can it think freely? I really, really have my doubt when I see some of these things in these intertwined ways. How does one get out of all this stuff? It's just one thing after the other. And the money that some of these babus have made, I'm telling you, it blows your mind because they have made as much money as some of the bigger politicians have. And the politicians don't have the wherewithal to cleverly layer it and park it in various tax havens and move it around from tax haven A to tax haven B. All that is being done by the bureaucrats, and they sometimes are sitting in critical positions in various organizations around the world, ensuring that everybody's money is protected. It's really, really sad. And the solutions are so simple. Fali Nariman had introduced a bill when he was a member of Rajya Sabha on how to nationalize everybody's wealth outside of India and tell them that unless they prove that they paid taxes on the money, they cannot touch their money. And India has the power today to enforce that thing across the courts of any country. They can say that, look, this is this guy's money and I'm freezing it. And America, especially, America has a lot of the money of the politicians today. They can freeze it. You send them an order to freeze, they will freeze it. UK will freeze it. Today, I'm hearing that Mr. Malia has to take the subway. They call it the tube in London to get around. He doesn't even have a car. Basic subsistence is all he's getting. Is what I'm hearing. So there are ways to make people feel poor, but how many people will the government go and fight? Instead, why don't you just nationalize everybody's assets outside of India and have them prove that they got it legally and leave it at that? And it has to be done in a transparent manner so everybody knows. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, guys.
All right. Thank you, Ayer sir. It is very depressing to talk about the corruption that has been set so deep rooted in the judiciary, bureaucracy, and even in the political spectrum. So I'm trying to go to the audience question on a lighter note. At least I'm
Sure.
trying to. I don't know whether it will be more depressing or not. What can we as Bharatiyas do to fight this? However limited our capacities, let's start from the jewelry shops, jewelry chain that we were talking about, and expand on that if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So there are some jewelry shops that will certify the product. What is the purity, and what is the source of the gold? You can ask them, where did you get the gold from? And I think once people start asking these uncomfortable questions, then people will be forced to admit that yes, this was actually sourced from this particular gold mine, and that the taxes have been paid. This the gold smuggling into India is a huge racket now. What we are seeing in airports in Kerala is just small speck. It comes in many other ways also. But at least creating awareness. For example, insisting on a Hallmark certificate. Anything that you buy in a jewelry shop, tell them I need you to certify Hall. I need you to give me the hallmark certification for this. I think they usually charge a nominal amount like 100 500 rupees, something like that. I tell you, you're buying 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 5 times 5 lakhs, whatever the amount of money you're spending to buy the jewelry, that 500 rupees is worth it, because that hallmark tells you that the gold is indeed of certain purity that it says it is supposed to be. Otherwise, you are just finding something bright and getting it. You don't know how pure that is. And if you find out that 2 years later, on constant wearing, it's becoming dark, too late. It is difficult. So at least try to make sure that the jewelers are following proper procedures before they are giving it to you. Also, don't pay cash. Please pay using credit card. That is one of the biggest things you can do. Go to a jewelry shop, please pay by credit card or do net banking. Do not pay in cash.
All right. That's a wonderful suggestion. And do you think the digital India is a practical dreams? I'm
Absolutely,
talking
it
about.
is. Go ahead. Go ahead. Please finish your
Uh,
question.
I'm talking about 138 crores of population in population, 1.38 billion. So,
Um, I had a personal experience recently. Even in US, you don't need to deal with cash, but you do need to have something like a credit card when you are purchasing. Guess what? Sometimes I leave home without my wallet, but I never leave home without my phone. So Apple has made it easy for me to take my credit card into the phone and I can wave the phone in front of the terminal and I can pay for it. That convenience, once it works, you start using it, it becomes very catchy. You don't need to take a wallet. You can just use your phone. And the fact that sometimes you know how eclairs has become 5 rupees. If you if the shop wallet doesn't have change to give you, he'll give you an eclairs. What about the situation when you are diabetic? Do you want to get into more trouble? So these kinds of things will go away. Change anything like that in digital is just an adjustment in ledger. And that is the convenience that you don't need to carry cash with you. So for example, if you're traveling somewhere and you have to be you want to feel safe. If you're going in a car, for example, what happens if you get waylaid? You may have a little bit of cash to just get around some of the absolute emergencies, but all the big items, over 10,000 rupees purchase, you should be able to do it digitally. In fact, you should do it digitally because that establishes a trail and that essentially forces every player in that trail to deal with white money.
all right. Thank you so much, Ayer sir. Uh, so, with teachers and yours permission, I'm going to take a couple of some audience question. We are reaching our conclusion. So, with both
Yeah.
your permission, I'm going to the audience. Audience, I'm turning the hand raising on. Please do raise your hand and come up and keep your mic muted until your name is called. Thank you. So, so going to the audience question, Ranganathan sir, your question.
Okay, thank you, Pathrika and moderators. Good evening, TJ sir and Sree sir. See, I am used to seeing you in Times Now, Republic, etc. And today I'm delighted that no, I could talk to you directly. Coming to the discussion, after demonetization, we are now moving into a digital economy very fast. Now, but during election time, various state election time, etc., we saw this 2,000 rupees notes moving, being transported in huge bulk, etc. Now, as a follow-up measure to the demo, I have two questions to ask. In your, we moving into digital economy, can we restrict cash deposit or withdrawal per month into an account, say around 20,000 or 20,000? Because we nowadays, as you said, the last part of the discussion, we don't require much cash. So, can we restrict the cash deposit or withdrawal into an account? Say, I'm just giving just a vague figure, say 20,000 per month per PAN card basis. That is one. And the second question is, as a sequel to this, and to make this thing effective, as well as demo also effective, and the digital economy are also effective, is it possible? I'm just throwing the question out. Is it possible for the government to make this rupees 200 rupees note or 100 rupees note as the highest denomination? I am just
Um,
just one. In fact, I had send you a questionnaire, so some sort of teaser mail I had sent you, last year, just to know where do I stand in my thoughts. I don't
sure,
know whether
sure.
you must have seen that, because I
Yeah.
want to, based on your feedback, I would have prepared a sort of a note like, and I would have sent you. But anyway, I am happy that I could ask these questions now, and thank you.
Absolutely. So thanks for asking the questions. First off, I believe that the 2000 is being quietly phased out now. quietly being phased out. Nobody's saying anything, but basically there is a demonetization of some sort happening with the 2000 being quietly phased out. And and it is my contention that the 1000 rupee and the 500 also will be phased out, and the 200 will be the largest denomination that you will be able to use. And this has to go hand in hand with adoption of digital financing by the 138 crores. Everybody needs to adopt. What has to happen? Everybody has to get not just a small basic feature phone, but a smartphone. They need to get to that smartphone level, because only then you can do transactions even in adverse communication areas. See, today in US, I have 5G in many of the cities, and that is practically like Airtel broadband. That's how fast it is, and this is going to happen in India also. And as that starts going up, India, the government will be able to phase out the higher denomination currencies. And at 200 rupees being the maximum, and I agree with you, 200 should be the maximum. 200 itself is kind of a lot on the lower side. Maybe they may stop at 500, which I think is still fine. Then using cash to win elections or buy elections will become harder and harder. So that would be the side gain for this. And the other thing is that everything starts becoming more white. You can't fake anything. But my hope is, and I think the Modi government will do this thing eventually, is that it will completely abolish personal income tax and only have corporate income tax and value added tax, which is basically something that they can tag on top of GST and maybe 1 or 2% more, so that you just get taxed on your expenses and not on your income. That what it does is it takes away that feeling that, oh, I can make more if I do this, but then I'll end up with a big tax bracket and therefore I don't do it. If somebody gets into that situation, you shouldn't be constrained because of the tax. So that freedom comes when you completely abolish personal income tax. As a person, you are welcome to make as much money as you want. It is just the expenditure that we will be taxing you. I think that will be the great uh, experiment, and in fact, that will make India suddenly grow much quicker. It is my opinion that that's what will happen. Especially average age in India is 25, 27. Those kids shouldn't be constrained. Already you are seeing that corporate workforce is mostly consultants now. It is, I think, 50-50, 50 full-time, 50 consultant, and the consultant part will be growing more and more. Why do they do that? Because they want to be able to easily hire and fire. They want to have an elastic workforce, and therefore, when you're having things like this, why do you want to just tax them on their meager earnings? Let them keep the money for a rainy day. You know that they are going to pay tax because you can't eat rupees. You have to spend it.
Yeah, I think my first part of the question, I am more interested in that also. That no, the per month transaction per PAN card per account should not be more than 20,000 into the bank account or from the bank account. Because if everything is going to be digital, I don't think we require any money to spend except for some shoe polish or some 10 rupees or some 20 rupees, some sort of say I want to buy something local.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought about it, but somehow making that as a rule may also crimp. Why do you want to do that? If everything is traceable, right? If everything is going from bank to bank, it doesn't matter if it is 20,000 or 2 lakhs or 20 lakhs or whatever. I mean, I don't. You don't want to complicate the system. My way to look at this is to not put any tax on personal income. That way, you are free to make whatever money you want. You can transfer money from A to B. It doesn't incur any tax on anything. It's only when you spend, which is GST is now completely taken root. GST is a fairly well established system. So you can add 1 or 2 percentage points there saying that, look, I'm giving you a huge break in personal income, but you pay taxes. For example, if you imagine if a house registration comes under GST, maybe even 10%, but that's a huge revenue generator for the government. So I think that is the way to go, my
Okay, no,
opinion.
okay. Last thing. I just asked that only because of the movement of such a huge cash during elections, and secondly, In Maharashtra, this Parambir Singh, who had asked his deputies to get around 100 crores of
100 crores.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that is, these things will stop. Otherwise, then you will get a trail. When the money moves in white form, you will get a trail who transferred where. So that's why this question arose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Iyer sir. Thank you, Ranganathan sir.
I would like to add one point here.
Please.
Every economic reform will have a cultural shock also. We have to take care of the nature of Indian culture while bringing in reforms, rules, taxes, etc. Many of the things, if it doesn't match with the grain of our society will become unstable and will start protesting. And a political price will have to be paid for that. Now, cash is something, especially in the villages, still cash is running. There are no ATMs. How many ATMs are there, do you think? How many this swiping machines are there in villages? So, if we bring in some rule which becomes a cultural shock, in fact, there is a cultural lag in every economic activity. Government announces a policy and people take some time to become comfortable with that. And before you become comfortable with that, you come with another rule. That too in the cash, ordinary man's cash transactions and bank transactions. It will give severe cultural shock. Even in demonetization, it happened. Every woman, our family is preserved by our women, not by people like we who are speaking in clubhouse. Family is run by women, and women have kept some cash with them. Even my wife had 30,000, that is 30,000 rupees notes when demonetization was announced. And I have seen her worry in her face, what will happen to my family? You are going on giving speeches. I kept 30,000 rupees. Dekho ab wo bhi chala gaya. Well, no, it has not gone. It is white money, doesn't matter. Tomorrow morning we will go to a bank and get it. We will get new notes. This is a cultural shock which was taken by an average Indian woman. There are crores and crores like my wife who are actually they are the backbone of our family. So when we bring in this type of reforms, we should not put them further into cultural shock. Thank you.
Okay, sir. I'll butt in the end if I have got time. I don't want to keep on carrying on this. Thank you.
Ranganathan sir, quickly, you have 30 seconds to add on. Others are waiting and we are
No,
nearing
that's why
our
I don't want
conclusion.
to. No, I don't want to give a sort of disappointment to others that they have to wait. Okay, if you allow me, my question was yes, there will be a culture shock, but I'm giving a buffer of that because in village they don't require too much of cash. Even 20,000 or 25,000 is enough for a person. This is just my own judgment. It may be wrong also. Anyway, this can be discussed.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is what I said. In villages, 20 to 25,000 rupees per person is enough to spend. Even I'm taking more than
Ranganathan sir,
15,000. One
Ranganathan
second,
sir,
one second. I'm not taking more
I
than
was not
15,000. Yeah.
contradicting you. I was not at all contradicting you. I was supplementing you,
Yeah.
only reminding that there has to be some consideration for the cultural shock also. That's all. I was
Okay.
not
Maybe we
contradicting you
can
at all.
keep it a higher level and keep on bringing it down over a period of time. Anyway, that's why we could talk on this for a long time. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. That is a topic for another day, and another time. Thank you for giving us another topic, Ranganathan sir. We will put that up for discussion, and we will go back to Iyer sir and TG sir to get their time, and we will put that topic to discussion. This cultural shock of changing India, converting India into a digital India. Iyer sir, we will be coming back to you. So,
Okay.
all right. So,
Put it as cultural lag, not as cultural shock.
yes.
That could be an attractive caption, but that cultural lag means very much.
Yes. That is why I didn't mention
The
your.
heading, Manoj, the heading can be cultural change, not a shock.
Yeah,
Cultural change.
yes. No, but because I'm thinking about the viability of attracting the audience. Uh,
Anyway,
I
please,
just
please
wanted.
go to the next questioner. They are waiting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Manoj bhai, your question, please. Manoj sir, your question. Manoj Nair. If Manoj Nair is not online, Vikas bhai, your question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Manoj sir. Thank you all the moderators for the opportunity. Hello, Sree Iyer, sir. Happy evening. I just
Namaskaram.
wanted, yeah, Jai Shri Ram. I just wanted to ask a question. If Nirmala Sitaram ji is not a good choice as a finance minister of India, whom do you think can be alternative? Is Piyush Goyal a good choice? That's what. Thank you.
See, finance is a fairly complicated task, and in India, we frequently confuse microeconomics with macroeconomics. And the correct person, in my opinion, who needs to be shepherding India for whatever until he is able to is Dr. Subramanian Swamy. And it has to be somebody, I mean, he doesn't have to be in Congress or BJP or any party, because this is a very complicated model that we are ushering in. Remember that all his work is now being adopted across EU when they plan how a single currency is to be managed across multiple countries. They use his work, and India doesn't want to use him. And Piyush Goyal is another Sitaraman. I'm sorry, he just happens to be a bright person, but I don't think he quite has written any articles, hasn't expressed any thoughts on what exactly is macroeconomics, what is microeconomics, what is needed to be. See, that is how you know somebody's capacity, that they have to actually publish, and this published publications have to be peer reviewed, meaning like be reviewed by others in the same field, and then they critique it and say, okay, yes, this has merit, yes, this doesn't have merit. It doesn't matter, it is merits or demerits, but somebody has to hold them and then say, okay, this idea has legs. I don't see anybody of that stature as Dr. Swami in Indian spectrum today. In fact, it's if he was in any other country, he would be that country's finance minister, setting out the finance policy of that country. It is India's unfortunate bad luck that we continue to reward mediocrity and, in fact, incompetence. Thank you.
Can we expect him anytime soon, sir, to be the finance
I
minister of
don't
India?
think so. These people are. See, there are two things here. One is that he is an independent man. Once he decides that this is how it shall be done, it is that's where it's going to be. He's not going to change his mind unless you ask him to resign. So this kind of intransigence is what people don't like. They want everybody to be malleable and ductile. Unfortunately, some things you cannot be that, and especially in setting the finance policy of a country, you cannot be that. You have to work to a plan, and that plan has to be tweaked only by one or two individuals or one small set of people. That's the only way it will work. I don't think the current leadership in BJP would want to work with him because they won't be able to rebut him. They may say, yeah, you can't do this thing, but they will not be able to convince him why what he is trying to say is not workable. You see, that intellectual heft is missing. Nobody in the cabinet can tell him, sir, your idea of not allowing personal income tax is not workable. All they'll keep saying is, oh, we are getting 4 lakh crores revenue, that will be a shortfall. And he'll say, what about just go and give licenses for 2G, 3G, 5G, 6G, 7G? Why can't you make up for it from there? And they say, oh, no, 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 that money is going to go into something. See, the point is, everybody is again looking at it like it is a microeconomics. They're not looking at the big picture. Allowing Haryana and Punjab to grow rice is the cause of the stubble problem. The stubble causes havoc in Delhi. It creates new diseases for people. It adds a lot of cost. Instead, what should have been done was to find a way to get water in the rice fields of Kaveri Delta, which is basically try and use desalination at the seawater and then pump the water backwards. It's a very gentle slope. That was what should have been done. India doesn't do it. India always takes jugad. This jugad is sometimes bad too.
Thank you, sir. My final question, sorry, moderators, for taking more time.
Yes,
My final
please.
question is we have got some list of foreign account holders to India. I mean, few speculate it as black money also. So, do we get those amounts or accounts? Are it be audited very time soon? And can we get the money back to India anytime soon, sir?
Remember all those trips that Karti Chidambaram used to take? He was basically taking out of existing bank account and moving it to another tax haven to create one more layer of wall. So you can't find out. So those foreign bank accounts don't mean a thing. If you go and look at the account, they'll be all zero balance. They will be closed. So that thing has already, that bird has already flown the coop. There's nothing you can do. See, India is a very patient country. It's a very forgiving country for all the corrupt people. And in order to try and bring in some discipline, the best way to do is to appeal to their morality and do what I suggested, that Pali Nariman's bill, nationalize everybody's wealth outside and let them prove that they earned it legally and that they got interest. And put it in the news bulletin every day. XYZ returned so much money, and then this money has been identified to be white, and therefore he is allowed to take this money out. India never does that. India doesn't want to do that. That is the problem. The entrance bureaucracy has already tasted the fruit of corruption. If the Babu is if the politician steals 1,000 crores, the Babu steals 10 crores. But the 10 crores that he has stolen, that he will have to cough up, makes him be extra loyal to that politician. He'll go the extra mile. He'll make sure that nobody even touches this thing. See, that is the kind of Babudam you have today. Modi ji can fire half of his workforce, Babudam, and nothing will happen. He can let go of all departments in the center except for four: defense, external affairs, finance, and home. Now, all the others can be completely disbanded. All those IAS officers can be sent to their state cadre. Let the states decide what they want to do with them, and nothing will happen. In fact, that is the thing that is going to go. It will happen sooner or later. If you notice already, there is now talk about including petrol under GST. And when that happens, petrol will be around 75 a liter, diesel will be probably even less. And suddenly India will be faced with a situation where they are going to actually have more money in their hands, and all the prices of commodities have to come down. Because what happens is when petrol goes up, they'll add that and then some when they are transporting from, say, rice from Kerala to Maharashtra, and they say, oh, because petrol went up, the prices have gone up. Now, when the petrol has gone down, you, the common man, should question, yeah, it has gone down. Why isn't your price going down? So these kind of things, this awakening has to happen among the public, saying, look, I need a 25% reduction in everything across the board, because my petrol, the primary component of the cost that adds up, is now gone down by 25%. I want to see that. Let's demand that. Let us say that everything has to start costing 25% less. I mean, it's a steep fall from 101 rupees a liter to 75, which is where the Modi government wants to take it. It's a huge fall. And the reason it is being done is because there is something called direct expense and an indirect expense. And a critical component like fuel results in 4 times the impact on the indirect cost. So these are all research that has been done in countries like Sri Lanka, Turkey, and so on, that has proved that if you reduce prices, then the overall the feeling that everybody has more money in their hands will come through, and that will in itself reinvigorate the economy. I hope I'm kind of going here and there, but I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. I think you did very well. And with your permission, moving on to the next questioner, we have a lady present among us. LP ma'am, you online? LP ma'am?
Hello. Yeah, thank you so
Yes.
much.
Yes.
Namaskaram to all. Sriji, I have two questions. One is,
Sure.
I do understand. Mohandas ji put it very well. Our bureaucracy and our judiciary is a bottleneck. Now, judiciary maybe it is far beyond common man's reach, but bureaucracy, can the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha bring out a bill? Because what happens is Babu Dom sits, become comfortable, and when they retire, they join those parties that they have been helping. So at least after retirement, can there be a bill bought where they cannot join any political wing or they cannot be a part of any political wing? And if they want, like Annamalai ji, they have to resign, get into politics early, and then work on it. So at least that portion, so that this Babu don't, because the corruption has been there for so long. Modi is not a Superman with a cape who can go in the night and punch people out. It will take time for him to reform, get the things done. And I agree with a lot of frustration that you have mentioned when it comes to, say, ministers or things like that. But everything is not so black and white for one person to do everything. So the bottom line, at least these small things, like, where Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha can do something, can this be bought in?
Yeah, it is possible that, in fact, there are rules already in place whereby, say, for example, if a Babu retires from, say, Commerce Ministry, and that Commerce Ministry was dealing with licensing of a certain set of goods for one particular industry, that they have to have a cooling off period. That cooling off period is, I think, 3 years or something like that. But what happens is somehow all these rules are there on paper, but they are not being followed because the judiciary system is not fast enough to rule on this. And this was deliberately done this way because the politicians felt that they can commit the crime, and by the time they are caught, they are long gone. So it's not an easy situation to be in. However, it is my belief that with a few digital technology enhancements, a lot of things can be shortened and brought quickly under control. But it takes will, and India always will move only when it is under crisis. Maybe there will be an attack on India from China, and India will lose one state, and then suddenly everybody will start waking up and saying, "Oh my God! Suddenly now X state is no longer part of India. I wish I had been a little bit more alert." That is how India is, a crisis-driven society. Something like that has to happen before India will start moving to a situation or a model where corruption cannot exist. You have to take the oxygen out of corruption.
Um, can I ask one more question if it's okay?
Go ahead.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Okay.
Thank you. So National Herald case, I know Subramania Swamiji is going after that, but you see, the fact is, um, Rahul Gandhi, who is on bail, who is out on bail with Sonia Gandhi, if they have foreign passports, is it possible for India to actually prosecute them as foreign nationals? Say in India, of course, as Indian citizens, they might get a right. But as foreign nationals, is it possible for India to go after them? And if yes, what are the procedures and what are the bottlenecks? Thank you.
So Indian constitution is very clear. You can only be citizen of India. If you take dual citizenship, then you automatically lose Indian citizenship, and that has consequences. And I think very simple thing that can be done is that if proven right, Rahul Gandhi should be stripped of its member of parliament rights. He'll become a human, normal citizen, and he will lose a lot of his perks. The fact that he can no longer stand for elections, that he can will just one that Congress party. I think Modi ji is aware that by allowing Rahul Gandhi to fall on his citizenship case would mean that some other leadership in Congress would emerge, and that could be a potential threat to him. And maybe that is why he lets this thing meander along. Let it go, because a weak opponent is better than a strong opponent. You see what I'm saying? So it is possible, and it can be done. It should have been done, and these are all things. If you catch hold of the top corrupt person, then the lower people will also feel a little bit sensitive to becoming corrupt again. So that should have been done. For some reason, you see, uh, there is limited thinking capacity also in the top leadership. I'm sorry to say this thing, but it is the truth. Anything that you disagree with me, I will be able to give you actual factual pointers to prove my point. There will be Andhbucks and Gandhbucks who will start heaping dung on all these comments. I don't care. If you want to do the normal way of Tarka debate, I'll be happy to explain why I'm taking a particular stand against a particular individual. So that is where things stand. I hope, madam, I explained this to you, and I think that tipping point also will be reached very, very shortly. I think so.
Thank
Th- Thank you, Iyer sir. Thank you, LP ma'am. Sunil sir, your question, please.
Yes, thank you, moderators, and namaskaram, Sree Iyer ji.
Namaskaram.
I'm a big follower of your P Guru's channel, and it was very enlightening for you, to hear you strip away all these financial shenanigans and put it in layman's language, because, uh, as you rightly put it, it's a tip of an iceberg, and there's a lot of things underneath that generally does not get discussed in the media, and people are not enlightened about it. So thank you, and I hope you can join us in later versions to enlighten us further. My question is of a tangent, and I was hoping you could jog our memories. I recall that you had broken a story a few years ago on some Kerala media people being arrested in, I think it was Abu Dhabi. Uh, could you elaborate on that, and are there any dots we need to connect on that? Thank you.
My memory is also a little unclear on this, but yes, I do remember breaking that. And journalists being arrested, what are they probably in the Middle East? They have very, very strict enforcement. Some other things, activities that would be, interpreted as being subversive, and like everything, Abu Dhabi system or any Middle East country, they are more or less following the British system, and it goes at its own pace. And but I will go back to the story, and if you have a link for that, maybe you send me the link. I can update via Twitter or Facebook on what happened and what is the latest status on.
Yeah,
Uh,
that would be great, because I think it may sometimes have a relevance to current happenings. As we know that if you have monitored the Kerala media, they seem heavily compromised.
Sunil sir, the news that you're talking about came out in 2020. This was related to Corona, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
See, I don't remember. I just
Yeah,
that's why I was hoping somebody could jog my memory.
yeah, that is, it was found that Asianet Dubai reporter K.R. Arun Kumar was faking the news report as live from Abu Dhabi. This was related to Corona. And Iyer sir, I'll just ping you the back channel ping you on your
Yeah.
back channel the news link.
Okay.
All right. So thank you, Sunil sir. Thank you, Iyer sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ramraj, your question.
Hi. Thanks for the opportunity, moderators, and also thanks to Sriji for a wonderful session today. My question is regarding the real estate deals. Real estate is an area where we have a lot of big black money flow, especially in states like Kerala. And the land prices are still high. We are known to have land jihad as well in Kerala, and the prices are not normalizing even after 5 years of demonetization. And especially for common man, it is still difficult to get a land unless he or she they have high connections with Gulf countries or in the government. So, do you think the India government has any plans to cleanse this area, this real estate investments? like digitizing it, and to prevent the black money deals?
Blockchain is a must in India to be implemented, especially for land transactions. Uh, because two things that are happening: governments are themselves putting their hand and trying to grab land that belongs to temples. That's one issue. Unfortunately, in some of these things, India is buffeted by so many problems that something that can be beneficial in the future is not something that they look up and say, yeah, let us adopt that now so that we can benefit from this in the future. Somehow India doesn't think that way. It's very unfortunate, but that is the truth. Hopefully, especially in land, one way to look at this is, why do you want to own the property? Why don't you consider renting it out? Because renting is a lot cheaper than owning. What difference does it make? Once you are dead, you are dead. Let your children worry about what they want to do. Why do you want to leave what we think is a piece of immovable property as as our inheritance to them? Leave them with something else, maybe cash. Maybe more importantly, how to live in the current scenario. Those are probably more better life lessons, and that requires a mindset change. In fact, I my mom sold. She is not even finished high school, but she was wise enough to sell her property, and she's been renting for the last 15 years. Very happy about that. Why? Because one second. Thanks for being patient. Is it better now?
Yeah, it is clearly audible. So,
Yeah. So I just got into. See, I was driving. I just got home and I switched to my home Wi-Fi.
okay.
That's why too. Okay. So where was I? I lost the thread. Go ahead.
That is weeding out the correction. India is
Renting,
buffet. Sir, did you say?
renting instead of owning, renting the property.
Renting the
Ah,
property.
yeah. See, I see a benefit in that. You rent the property because rentals are much more affordable. Just because there is an EMI, you feel like we should buy a house, and so that mindset change can happen. It can actually be beneficial. That's my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you, sir. I would like to add a sub question to Ram's question. How well would the concept of reverse mortgaging uh, aid in this one?
Oh, that will be fantastic. If the banks can start allowing that in India, that'll be fantastic. Imagine people have crores and crores worth property. If they can take some part of it out for reverse mortgage, that'll be great.
I think
India
already
can.
reverse. 1 minute, sir. Manoj,
Yeah.
I think already reverse mortgaging is happening in India. I think
It is.
SBI and other banks are allowing it.
Slowly they are coming to it. I'm more concerned about promoting that culture. It is not yet a hot thing among the middle or upper middle class.
Yeah,
So,
But
that is what I call cultural lag. What is reverse mortgaging? I mortgage my property and I enjoy money from the bank, and I am leaving the liability on the heads of my children. If they want, they can repay it and retain the property, or bank will take the property.
yeah.
So, for culturally, for an Indian parent to transfer his debt on his children is a bad thing. This cultural lag will happen. The idea is good, but there will be severe cultural lag in this.
Iyer, sir, your thoughts on that one?
No, I completely welcome it. I think it's again, attitude adjustment, especially in a country like India, where the amount of money you would have got in your house can see you for about 50, 55, 60 years maybe. I see nothing wrong in that, except that the children may feel like, oh, my parents are not leaving me with anything. Again, like I said, if they have the right kind of backing and education, they can make much more in a much shorter time, because there is a lot of opportunities. In fact, India stands at a point now where it can become, its workforce can become extremely affluent. I believe that with more and more money coming into India, and it will happen, because China is not the preferred destination for a lot of the newer investments. I think India stands to grow very, very quickly. But they have to simplify some of these things. I can tell you this is a bold step on part of Modi government, but let them just completely abolish personal income tax. You will see the kind of growth that it will be unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Thank you, Iyer, sir. Manoj Nair,
Yeah,
Manoj bhai,
namaskar.
online? Yeah.
Namaskar.
Go-
I'm audible, right? I seem to
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
poor
Yes, you are. You
connection.
are.
Okay, thank you. Pranam Mohandas ji, Pranam Sree Iyer ji. Sir, my question is from the investment markets. Like I've been working there. I had been working there. So in 2011, this rupee sort of crashed very badly. In the previous year, it was trading in a very narrow range between 45 and 46. And then sort of it suddenly slipped from 45 to around 70 levels in a very short span of time. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So there were strong rumors in the market. There was concerted beating down of the rupee in the offshore markets, and there was a top-notch politician, including Chidambaram's name. And like these were just rumors. I do not know, but was quite often taken. A lot of people had information. Some of my bigger clients were shorting the rupee big time. They were very sure about it. So, and I think the Hindu reported on this, but they did not take any names. I'm sure that Ayerji, you must be having some more information. Is it true
Oh,
that this was done like with
yeah, you watched some of the videos of Dr. Subramaniam Swamy in 2011 to 2014 before NDA came to power, and he deals with this thing in extensively. His allegation was that Karti was parked in Singapore and Vadra was parked in Dubai, and as finance minister, Chidambaram would not allow RBI to buy up dollar to shore up the rupee. See, that's what you do. If there is a demand on the dollar, the RBI will start making more dollars available to the system, which is by using their current account, and then they'll release money from that and buy it. They didn't do that, and there was also, according to Dr. Swamy, it was a deliberate move by Chidambaram to make this happen. And there was an article in Sunday Guardian. Once that article came, the next day everything stopped. And it recovered back to, I think, from 70, it recovered back to 63 or 65, at which it stood for a long time. Now it is again slowly come down to 73. See, it doesn't matter. Generation to generation, the bureaucrats in the finance ministry have the same mindset, that they need to allow the rupee to depreciate ever so slowly against the dollar. They don't seem to have a model that will deal with an appreciating rupee vis-a-vis the dollar. In fact, as India becomes a $5 trillion economy, US will start saying that you are a currency manipulator, because they'll say that for if you're a net exporter, which is what India will have to become, then it has to allow the currency to appreciate, or the rupee to appreciate. See, every time you deliberately devalue the rupee, the cost is being borne by the 138 crore people. They don't just realize it. In fact, everybody else is, you're diluting their wealth. And by conversely, by making the rupee to appreciate against the dollar, then you are making everybody rich. Isn't it easier in one small move here, you are making everybody rich, because the affordability of some of these things goes up. The direct connection. If you import something and if it costs you less, then you've got more for the same money that you had.
true, sir?
All right. Thank you, Manoj bhai. And Iyer sir, that brings us to the end of our audience questions, and we are moving towards a conclusion. Before we move towards a conclusion, TG sir, uh, would you like to add any conclusion statements to this?
It is too late now to add anything, and I
Mhm.
don't think anything is left out now.
All right. So,
Only thing,
yes, sir.
I hope the listeners should not become sad about the affairs of the country. The country as a whole, if you take it, is moving in a positive direction. And what myself or Sree Iyer has suggested are some more measures which can be done so that an accelerated growth of our country will take place. Not that you get disheartened by the state of affairs. अरे अब सब चला गया, जुडिशरी खत्म हो गया, पार्लियामेंट खत्म हो गया, ऐसा मत सोचना. See, we are moving in a positive direction, and what we suggest is a bigger push to the positive direction. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, TG sir. And Iyer sir, that brings us to you again for the conclusion. And before you go into the conclusion, I was hoping somebody from the audience would ask that question, but they didn't. Empowering a particular community through this, not empowering, encashing. That is
Enriching,
not
yeah.
enriching. Sorry, I was laying about for the right word. Enriching a particular community. So that two containers, we know that they came for a fact. I don't mind you viewing it from a fictional point of view, but a lot of new business establishments are coming about, not just coming up these days, not just jewelries, ready-made shops, everything, and in very curious locations also, by the sides of highways and everything. And in my experience, I hail from Trivandrum, the capital of Kerala. In my experience, I haven't. There are at least 10 shops in Trivandrum that I haven't seen a single customer during various points of time or day, but they remain open till 9 o'clock. So connect the dot for us as a fiction writer or an economic enthusiast or somebody as a Bharatiya. Please connect that dot and go into your conclusion. That is my request.
Yes, and in fact, Mohandas ji on a hangout with me after the book was released expressed a lot of these concerns, especially his observation that along the highway that one community owns property because they are planning for a situation where should there be a conflict with India and Kerala were to become something like an independent entity, that they can block it at several points. And the way these entities like this complexes come up with nobody coming, but yet the lights are on. This is something that we are watching and observing even in the United States. Even in the United States, it is happening. So this is essentially another way they are parking their wealth because like I said, you can't keep money in cash form for long. You never know when there will be a raid, and therefore instead of doing that, if you build a building, that building has some value, and they would rather just see that, and they can give a pretense of business by having a jewelry shop. They may even have some jewelry available to buy. So these are all manifestations of the same thing, that illegal wealth that has been given. It's basically to say that okay, you will vote for us, and in exchange we are going to give you money. And the other unfortunate consequence of this is population control, population going out of control. Because if somebody doesn't have to worry about managing their family because there's unlimited resources available, then they will just keep on procreating. And once you do that, then at some point of time the majority in population will be achieved. And I believe Kerala is at that point today. If nothing else, there should be a mandatory family planning for everyone, doesn't matter which religion they belong to, that if they want a third child, they need to apply and have some special consideration. Otherwise, nothing. You can only have two children. That has to happen. I don't see that happening. Again, there are some people in government, especially in the southern parts of India, who believe that they can somehow buy their constituents' votes and stay in power and then keep on, eating and surviving. I don't know when that cycle is going to get broken. I hope soon. Like Mohandas ji said, we shouldn't despair. Some India has a way of writing itself, and I think Corona may have been one of those hints that if you adopt some bad practices in life, then you are going to be more susceptible. Remember that Corona is a Darwinian disease.
Sree
Yeah,
Iyerji, I will only add that we will have another session on the containers of note which reached Kochi
yeah.
and how it affected TG Mohandas. And Mohandas filed a case, and how at the right opportunity, how government of Kerala filed another case against me. And in case of my arrest, a video is to be released. And that video, I hope it is still safe with Sree Iyer. The moment I am arrested, that video will be out. We'll do a we will do a clubhouse discussion someday on all these
Will
matters.
do.
Thank you.
Will do. Will do. Will do. Will do. Wonderful.
And Iyer sir, adding on to that, one more question before you conclude. How do we fight this with technology? Because I remember reading one of your articles in Sunday Guardian, if I'm not mistaken, about blockchains and fighting black money, and how do we use technology to fight black money? How we should use. So I request you to add those points in your conclusion.
Oh, absolutely.
Pathrika.
So blockchain is a revolutionary technology that establishes that proof that somebody actually used it along the way. So if you associate, for example, a bank loan to a farmer, simple example, 1 lakh rupees the bank gives as loan to the farmer, and the bank tells the farmer that you shall spend 25,000 towards fertilizers, 25,000 towards seeds, 25,000 for paying electricity and other bills, and the remaining 25,000 you keep to yourself for operational expenses for the next 2 3 months or something like that. Now, if the bank is on the blockchain and the farmer is on the blockchain and the fertilizer company and any other big purchase company is also on the blockchain, then the bank can monitor how well this person is utilizing the loan he got. See, suddenly now you will see that there is no cutting because the 1 lakh has to come to the farmer, and then from the farmer the money has to go to the bank, to the fertilizer. He will the blockchain will track that. So these kinds of things will start making it automatic for people to not be able to skim money off of the top. So that is the technology that India needs to be adopting, and this is not very expensive. It requires a mindset, and it requires a little bit of enterprise. You can start small. You can start with, like for example, a small state like or a small union territory like Chandigarh, which is advanced, and try some of these things there and perfect it for Indian conditions and make people get used to it. And once that happens, the adoption will make it possible for corruption to be completely stopped. I'll also give you another thing: vote catching, right? Elections. Why do middle class not go and vote? Because usually there is a limitation on how far the booth has to be from the voter. And coincidentally, the middle class voter will find that it is right at that edge. If there is 1 kilometer distance between you and the voting booth, that's what it'll be, because they don't want you to come and vote. Both parties, all parties are clear. Middle class guys, you're no good. Only BJP likes it, but even sometimes the way they do things, one wonders if even BJP wants the middle class vote or not. So the best thing to do is, instead of you having to go and vote somewhere, let the vote be done from the comfort of your drawing room, and do it from your smartphone. With blockchain, you can do that. Not only that, you can vote multiple times on the same election. Someday you like Rahul Gandhi's speech, you voted for him. Next day, Modi gives a stirring speech, you decided to change your vote. You can vote for Modi. The last vote you cast will be your final vote. And you can have a track record. How many times you change your mind? You can even put a comment. Rahul Gandhi's observation about potatoes from the ground was great, or something like that. And you can have a chuckle about it. But what happens is, if you can do it from the comfort of your room, then everybody will be encouraged to vote. And that way, what happens is it evens out some of the malpractices. And you can take money from anybody, but the local politician will not know whether you voted for him or not. So once he doesn't know which way you voted, and he can't establish that you voted one way or the other, then he'll stop paying you money. You see, that's how you have to do it. You have to take the oxygen out of corruption. And these are all, blockchain as a single technology has the answers for proper land ownership, for tracking money, for being a platform for elections. So you can go on. I can go on. In fact, I'm trying to do the same thing in the United States. I'm now talking with many intellectuals in US saying that we got to have blockchain. In the way in US elects its president, the methods of election voted is ridiculous. That's what I wrote in that book, Who's Painted My State Purple. That's exactly what it is. I saw that 2016 elections was bad, 2020 was worse. I said this has to stop now. So anyway, so that is happening. So this is a technology that has a lot of solutions for some of the problems that India is suffering from. The question then comes, who's to bell the cat? I also suggested that IITs are the ones that have the best brains coming through the colleges. Why can't they have IIT college elections on a blockchain? Simple. Have the IIT engineers write the program. It's it's all open source, okay? It's all available. You can download it. You just have to tune it. You have to put the names, who are the contestants, and then you let this thing run. It's not very difficult. It has to be incubated in a small area, which is why I said IIT campus or something like that, and go from there. It is doable. I'm hoping and I'm praying that somewhere somebody has the pluck and the enterprise to do something like this. And once that happens, I can tell you this will really start taking root. Already you saw the benefits of direct benefit transfer, right? The middleman is eliminated. Every person who gets a subsidy on the cylinder gets it right into their bank account. There's a message that comes in. You paid full price for your cylinder of your gas cylinder, and because you are 65 years or you are eligible for a break, here is your 200 rupee rebate. So Modi ji has accomplished it. Except with blockchain, you can do it much faster. And once it is in place, trust me, nothing can break it.
Thank you so much, Iyer sir. And that brings us to the conclusion of our program today. And that was a very enlightening and very honest open forum, I must say. Little bit uh, uncomfortable and to hear, but the truth. Thank you so much for that. And on that note, Iyer sir, with yours and TG Mohandas sir permission, let me move towards the conclusion of this session.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
All right. Thank you, sir. On that note, the issue of black money and by extension, the enrichment of a particular community, as we discussed in this open forum with Sree Iyer, sir, is a festering problem, not just in Kerala, but all over the world. We cannot turn a blind eye towards this issue anymore, just because of the fact that addressing this problem, as it might hurt some religious sentiments that is perched on some imaginary loft. So, what do we do? What do we do as an ordinary citizen to fight this? For starters, as Iyer sir suggested, go digital as much as possible. And for the rest of the solution, we need to keep this discussion ongoing and keep an eternal vigil against corruption. Ignore the pseudo secular system that will try to silence you. Speak the truth and fight this war. And we will keep this discussion ongoing. And Sree Iyer sir, thank you so much. DG Mohandas sir, thank you so much. And with that, let me conclude tonight's event with both your permission. And to the audience, thank you all. and do subscribe to Pathrika and Pathrika's YouTube page. This program is being recorded and the video will be uploaded in the Pathrika YouTube channel within the next 24 hours. Thank you so much. Shubharatri to all. Sree Iyer sir, thank you so much. TJ sir, thank you.
Namaskaram. Thank you very much, and it was my pleasure.
Namaskaram sir. It was a pleasure having you here, sir. And with
Thank you, Sree Iyer ji. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
all right. Thank you,
Thank you.
TJ sir. And with all your permission, I am ending the room. Thank you. Shubharatri to all.